Admiral stood before the Galactic Council and felt the weight of billions watching him. The chamber was massive, built from crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Above him, 847 alien species sat in judgment. Some had tentacles, others had scales, and a few looked like floating clouds of gas. They all stared at him with the same expression, fear disguised as authority. "Humanity," the judge announced, her voice echoing through translators, "you are found guilty of being a threat to galactic peace." Clenched his fists but kept his face calm. He had served Earth for 40 years, fought in 3 wars, and negotiated 12 peace treaties. None of it mattered now. The council had made their decision before the trial even began. Captain Park stepped forward from the human delegation. She wore her military uniform with pride, medals gleaming under the crystal light. "We fought only when attacked," she said firmly. "We defended our colonies. We protected innocent lives." A representative, looking like a giant insect, clicked his mandibles. "You fought too well. You adapted too quickly. Your species learns from every battle and becomes stronger. This frightens us. So you punish us for surviving." Voice rose with anger. The ambassador, an ancient being that looked like flowing water, spoke in a whisper that somehow filled the room. "We punish you for existing as you are. Your emotions make you unpredictable. Your creativity makes you dangerous. Your determination makes you unstoppable." Diplomat moved beside. She had spent 20 years building relationships with alien cultures. She knew their languages, their customs, and their fears. "Please," she said softly, "give us a chance. We can change. We can learn to fit into your civilization." But the judge raised her hand. "The decision is final. Humanity is banished from the galaxy. You have 1 standard year to evacuate all colonies beyond your home system. All faster-than-light travel routes to Earth will be blockaded. You will have no contact with any galactic species. This is our mercy. We let you live, but only in your corner of space." The council chamber erupted with approval. Alien representatives made sounds of relief and satisfaction. They had contained the human threat. They had protected themselves. Remember the Jericho incident? Commander Wu Jin had commanded a single damaged cruiser against an entire enemy fleet. The aliens expected humanity to surrender. Instead, Wu Jin used the gravity of a nearby moon to slingshot his ship around in impossible patterns. He fired at precise moments, destroyed 3 enemy ships, and damaged 7 more before finally retreating. The enemy fleet in confusion. They couldn't understand how 1 broken ship had caused so much damage. That victory had sealed humanity's fate. The galaxy realized that humans didn't give up, didn't surrender, and didn't think like other species. They became terrified of what humanity might become in 1,000 years. Back on Earth, President received the verdict in his office. He was an old man now, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had led Earth through prosperity and growth. He had seen humanity reach for the stars and succeed. Now he watched it all crumble. "Mr. President," his aide said quietly, "the people are demanding a response." Looked out the window at the city below. Millions of humans going about their lives, not yet knowing their future had just been stolen. "Tell them the truth," he said. "We have 1 year to bring everyone home." The evacuation began within days. Admiral Song took command of the largest logistical operation in human history. 47 colony worlds had to be emptied. 9 billion people needed transport back to Earth and Mars. There weren't enough ships. There wasn't enough time. On station, the farthest human outpost, Captain Jin Lee prepared to leave. He had been born here, had never seen Earth except in pictures. Now he had to abandon his home. Engineer Myra Han worked beside him, disconnecting critical systems. "We should leave them nothing," she said bitterly. Jin nodded. "Do it." Myra accessed the station's reactor controls. She set a delayed overload that would destroy the station 3 days after they left. The aliens wanted to claim human infrastructure. They would find only wreckage. Some colonies refused the evacuation order. On New Harmony, Governor 1 and 5,000 settlers chose exile over submission. "We'd rather take our chances in the unknown than crawl back defeated," he announced. The Galactic Council declared them outlaws, but humanity had bigger concerns. The transport ships arrived at each colony, packed people into every available space, and jumped back toward Earth. Families were separated. Possessions were left behind. Dreams were abandoned. Admiral led the final evacuation convoy. 50 ships carried the last 2 million colonists. As they approached the Sol system, alien warships appeared on their sensors. The blockade was already in place. Dozens of ships from different species formed a wall around humanity's home. "This is the Imperium," a voice crackled over communications. "You are now confined to the Sol system. Any attempt to leave will be met with force. This is your prison. Learn to accept it." Wanted to fire his weapons to fight back, to show them that humanity wouldn't accept this fate quietly. But his ships were full of civilians. Children, elderly, the sick and wounded. He couldn't risk their lives for pride. "Acknowledged," he said through gritted teeth. "We're coming home." The convoy passed through the blockade. The alien ships tracked their every movement with weapons armed, looked back at the stars one last time. Somewhere out there, other humans were hiding, trying to survive in unauthorized space. The galaxy thought it had caged humanity. But as watched Earth grow larger on his, he made a silent promise. This wasn't the end. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters. They would survive this too, and someday they would return to the stars, not as beggars asking for permission, as conquerors who had earned their place. The ships entered Earth's orbit, the blockade sealed behind them. Humanity was alone. 50 years had passed since the banishment. Earth was drowning in its own population. 15 billion people crammed onto one planet and its moon. Food was rationed. Water was recycled 7 times before disposal. The air in the cities tasted like metal and desperation. Director Sara Nam stood before the World Council with a desperate plan. She was younger than most directors, only 35, but she had brilliant ideas that others called insane. "We can't stay here," she said, projecting images of overcrowded cities. "In 20 years, we'll run out of resources. We need to leave." "The blockade," Council Chair Min Ho reminded her. "The aliens watch every ship. Where would we go?" Sora smiled and changed the projection. It showed the space between galactic arms, the great void that separated the bright spiral of stars. "There," she said. "The aliens don't want it. They never explore it. It's dark, empty, and full of nothing they value. But it's ours if we're brave enough to take it." The council argued for months. The void was dangerous. No stars meant no light, no heat, and no easy resources. But Earth was dying slowly under the weight of too many people. Finally, they approved the Exodus Initiative. 12 generation ships were built from scrapped colony equipment. Each could carry 20,000 people on a journey that might take decades. The volunteers came forward, people willing to risk everything for a chance at a new life. They were engineers, farmers, soldiers, and dreamers. They boarded the ships knowing they might never see a planet again. The ships launched in secret, using old mining routes that the blockade didn't watch closely. They slipped past the alien patrols and dove into the darkness between stars. The void swallowed them, and humanity held its breath. 75 years after banishment, the first message arrived back at Earth. "We found something," it said. The signal was weak, delayed by distance, but filled with hope. The first generation ship had discovered a rogue planet, a world without a sun, drifting alone in the darkness. It had a molten core that provided heat. Ice on the surface could be melted for water. It wasn't paradise, but it was survival. Scientists led the research team on the rogue planet they named Haven 1. He worked in laboratories carved from ice, powered by geothermal energy. "We can't depend on the sun anymore," he told his team. We need to create our own power. After 10 years of research, invented a new form of cold fusion. It worked with the ice and frozen gases abundant in the void. One small reactor could power an entire city. The discovery changed everything. Suddenly, the void wasn't a prison. It was an opportunity. More ships followed. More worlds were found, brown dwarfs that gave off dim heat, asteroid clusters rich in minerals, and frozen moons orbiting ancient gas giants. Humanity learned to mine comets for water, to build habitats in asteroid cores, and to create ecosystems in sealed domes. Children were born who never saw Earth. Park was one of them. She grew up on Haven 7, an ice world that orbited a brown dwarf. She learned to fix reactors before she could read. She knew the sound of ice cracking under pressure and the smell of recycled air. When her teachers showed her pictures of Earth with its blue oceans and bright sun, she couldn't imagine living there. The void was her home. 120 years after banishment, humanity had built 200 settlements in the darkness. The population reached 12 billion, spread across thousands of light-years of empty space. They were no longer refugees. They were void dwellers, a new kind of human adapted to life without stars. Commander Sun established military training on Haven 7. He was a descendant of Admiral, carrying his ancestors' determination. "The aliens think we're gone," he told his soldiers. "They think we're dying in the dark. We need to be ready for when they realize they're wrong." The void colonies developed their own culture. People valued self-reliance above everything. They built with their own hands, grew their own food, and defended their own homes. There were no aliens to trade with, no galaxy to rely on. They had only themselves. Engineer Han worked on the problem that obsessed every void colonist: how to travel faster. The old faster-than-light drives needed established star lanes, the bright paths between stars that the galaxy controlled. But Han studied the structure of space itself. The void wasn't empty. It was different. After 30 years of failures, Han succeeded. His new FTL drive didn't use star lanes. It traveled through the void by using the dark matter that filled empty space. The drive was invisible to galactic sensors. Ships could appear and disappear like ghosts. The Ghost Drive, they called it. It gave humanity something the galaxy didn't have: the ability to move through space the aliens didn't understand. 150 years after banishment, the hidden human empire spanned 500 systems. 40 billion people lived in the void sphere, as they called their territory. They had their own government, their own military, and their own purpose. High Chancellor led the Confederated government from Haven Prime, the largest void settlement. She was a hard woman shaped by life in the darkness. "We were thrown away," she said in her inauguration speech. "The galaxy thought we would die quietly. Instead, we built something they never imagined. We owe them nothing. We are free." Fleet Admiral Wu commanded humanity's military. His fleet had 10,000 ships, all equipped with ghost drives. They trained in the darkness, learning to fight in 3 dimensions without the reference of stars. They developed tactics that used the void's terrain: gravity wells from rogue planets, radiation from brown dwarfs, and the absolute darkness itself. Young strategist Jin proposed something bold during a military conference. She was only 28, but her ideas impressed the admirals. "We should go back," she said, "not to ask permission, not to beg, but to show them what we've become." The Return Protocol, Admiral Wu called it. The plan was simple: reveal humanity's existence to the galaxy, demonstrate their strength, and demand recognition as equals. But not yet. They needed more time, more ships, and more preparation. The void colonies grew stronger each year. They built fortress stations around strategic points. They established supply lines through the darkness. They prepared for the day when humanity would step back into the light. And in the galaxy beyond, the alien species continued their politics and wars, completely unaware that in the darkness between stars, humanity had built an empire. The banished had become the invisible. The exiles had become the powerful. The void had forged them into something new, something the galaxy wasn't ready for. The exploration ship Bright Wing had been charting empty space for 6 months. Captain was bored. His crew was bored. They were supposed to map the void between galactic arms, a mission no one wanted. The void was empty, worthless, and dark. It was punishment duty for crews that had angered their superiors. "Captain," the sensor officer called out, "I'm detecting power signatures ahead, multiple sources." Sat up in his command chair, "Power in the void, that was impossible, show me." The screen displayed a small settlement on a frozen moon. Domes, buildings, and ships, hundreds of life signs, and the power signatures were advanced, more advanced than technology. Who could build out here? Wondered aloud. Then his blood went cold. The ship designs looked familiar, old memories from history lessons. Those are human ships. Colonel Min received the alert on Haven 12. An alien ship had discovered their colony. He moved fast. His strike team launched in 3 stealth fighters equipped with ghost drives. They appeared beside the ship before it could send a warning. "Ship, power down your engines and communications," ordered. "Do it now or we'll destroy you." Captain stared at the human ships surrounding him. They had appeared from nowhere without any sensor warning. "How?" he whispered. "Humans were banished. You're supposed to be in the Sol system." "Power down," repeated. Obeyed. Within an hour, his ship was tractored to Haven 12's military station. His crew was separated and held in comfortable but secure rooms. Sat across from in an interrogation room. "How many of you are out here?" asked. "That's not your concern," replied. "Tell me about the galaxy. What's happened in the last 150 years?" Talked. The drugs humans gave him made lying impossible. He described the galaxy's current state. The Imperium was weaker than before, split by internal political fights. The collective had lost 2 wars. The dynasty was fading, their ancient power structure crumbling. The Galactic Council was divided and argued constantly. Many smaller species had formed their own alliances, tired of being ignored by the major powers. Listened carefully and recorded everything. The galaxy wasn't as strong as it had been. Its unity was breaking. This was important information. High Chancellor reviewed's report on Haven Prime. "They're vulnerable," she said to her advisors. "This is our chance." Admiral Sung commanded the Ghost Fleet, humanity's elite reconnaissance force. She was 50 years old and had been born on a generation ship. The void was her home, but she remembered the stories her grandmother told about Earth and the stars. She wanted to see the galaxy her ancestors had been forced to leave. "Begin operations," ordered. Fleet moved into the galactic rim. 30 ships, all invisible to sensors, all capable of appearing and disappearing at will. They hit small targets first, communication stations on the edge of civilization. They didn't destroy them. They infiltrated them, stole data, and left no trace. Within months, humanity had access to all galactic communications. They knew fleet movements, political secrets, and economic data. They watched the galaxy like hawks studying prey. Then they started taking bigger risks. Supply ships vanished between star systems. Trade stations went dark for hours at a time. Military outposts reported strange sensor ghosts that appeared and disappeared. The aliens began to worry. "It's the void ghosts," some species whispered. "Spirits that live in the darkness." The Imperium investigated but found nothing. How could they? Human ships didn't use the same space lanes. They came from the void itself. Grand Architect Myra Sun designed the greatest military operation in human history. She was 70 years old, brilliant, and ruthless. Her plan was simple: surround the galaxy's major powers with hidden fortress stations. Build them in the void, just outside the galaxy's edge. Make them invisible until needed. "We call it the encirclement," she explained to the military council. "When we're ready, We activate all 50 stations at once. Every major power will wake up to find human weapons pointed at their. General Jin Park led the construction effort. It took 20 years to build all 50 stations. Each one was massive, housing 10,000 personnel and enough firepower to blockade an entire star system. They were positioned carefully, hidden in the void's darkness, waiting. The hammer fleets were created to support the stations. These were fast attack groups designed to strike quickly and retreat before the enemy could respond. They trained constantly in the void, perfecting tactics that the galaxy had never seen. 200 years after humanity's banishment, everything was ready. High Chancellor stood in the communications center of Haven Prime. He was successor, chosen for this moment. He was calm, confident, and absolutely certain. "Send the message," he ordered. The broadcast went out across all galactic channels simultaneously. Every species, every government, every military command heard it at the same time. "People of the galaxy," his voice was clear and strong. 200 years ago, you banished humanity from the stars. You declared us too dangerous to exist among you. You thought you could cage us in our home system. You were wrong. The aliens watched in shock as images appeared with the message. Human settlements in the void, cities on frozen worlds, fleets of advanced ships, and sensor data showing the 50 fortress stations surrounding their space. "We have not died," continued. "We have not weakened. We have built an empire in the darkness you feared to explore. We have grown stronger than you imagined, and now we have returned. We demand the following: full recognition as a galactic species, a formal apology for our banishment, reparations in the form of technology sharing and open trade, and a permanent seat on the Galactic Council with full voting rights. You have one standard year to comply. If you refuse, we will take what we deserve by force. We are not asking permission. We are stating facts. The age of human exile is over." The message ended. The galaxy erupted in panic. On Prime, Empress called an emergency session of her advisors. "How many ships do they have?" she demanded. "Unknown, Empress, but the fortress stations alone represent more firepower than our entire fleet." The collective's military command ran the numbers. "If they're telling the truth, we can't fight them alone." The dynasty, oldest of the galactic powers, studied the data in silence. Finally, their high speaker said, "The humans learned well from their exile. They became what we feared most, and now they're stronger than us." 5 major powers formed a coalition. If humanity wanted war, they would give it to them. They assembled the largest fleet in galactic history, 5,000 ships from 5 different species. It took 6 months to organize. Admiral watched the buildup from Void Station Omega. He reported daily to command. "They're coming," he said. "Estimated arrival in 3 weeks." In the human government, President Min argued for caution. "We don't need to fight. They'll negotiate." But General Wu Han disagreed. "They're forming a war fleet. They plan to destroy us. We should strike first." High Chancellor made the decision. "We wait. Let them enter the void. Let them start the fight. Then we show them why you don't challenge humanity in our territory." The fleet approached. The trap was set. Humanity was ready. The coalition fleet entered the void like a spear thrust into darkness. 5,000 warships from 5 different species, all united by fear and determination. They came to crush humanity before it could threaten the galaxy. Admiral, a military legend, commanded the fleet from his flagship Infinite Justice. "Spread formation," he ordered. "Search pattern Delta, find the human bases and destroy them." The fleet spread out across the void, sensors sweeping for targets, but space between the stars was vast beyond imagination. They searched for 3 days and found nothing. No human ships, no stations, just darkness and cold. "Where are they?" muttered. His intelligence said humans had built an empire here, but his sensors showed only empty space. On Haven Prime, Admiral Jin watched the enemy fleet on tactical displays. Every human station tracked the aliens perfectly. The Coalition ships glowed on screens like bright targets. They couldn't see the humans, but the humans saw them clearly. "They're in position," Jin said calmly. He was 75 years old and had trained his entire life for this moment. "All ships, begin Operation Hammerfall." Near a rogue gas giant called Dead-Eye, the Coalition's left flank searched a sector. Suddenly, space tore open with ripples of distorted light. 50 human ships appeared from nowhere, their ghost drives depositing them directly among the enemy formation. The aliens barely had time to react. Human ships moved like sharks in water, fast and deadly. They targeted engines and weapon systems with precise fire. In 8 minutes, 20 alien ships were destroyed and 30 more were crippled. Then, just as suddenly, the human ships vanished again. "What just happened?" a captain screamed into communications. They appeared again an hour later on the fleet's right side. Different human ships, same deadly tactics. They struck hard, disappeared, and left chaos behind. The Coalition tried to regroup, but the humans attacked from new angles every time. Admiral realized his mistake too late. "They know where we are, we can't see them, we're fighting blind." The Battle of Dead Space lasted 8 hours. Human ships appeared and vanished like ghosts, using the void's terrain expertly. They used rogue planets' gravity to slingshot their ships at incredible speeds. They hid behind radiation fields from brown dwarfs. They attacked in coordinated swarms from multiple directions at once. The Coalition fleet fought bravely, but bravery doesn't help when you can't see your enemy. Their superior numbers meant nothing when human ships could choose when and where to fight. By the time Admiral ordered retreat, his fleet had lost 3,000 ships, 60% casualties, the worst defeat in galactic military history. The survivors limped back to galactic space, their crews traumatized and their ships damaged. The Coalition tried to keep the disaster secret, but word spread quickly. The galaxy learned that humanity wasn't just threatening, they were deadly. Admiral Jin didn't pursue the fleeing ships. He had proven his point. Now came the next phase. "Implement Fortress Protocol," he ordered. Within 24 hours, human fleets appeared around the major of the galaxy's powers. Fleet Commander brought 200 warships to Orbit Prime. They didn't attack. They didn't threaten. They just waited, their weapons trained on the planet below. Empress stared at the ships surrounding her world. They had appeared overnight, delivered by technology she didn't understand. Her military said fighting them would mean destroying her own planet in the crossfire. She was trapped. The same scene repeated across the galaxy. The was blockaded. The capital system was surrounded. Trade routes were cut. Communication networks were disrupted. Humanity didn't fire a shot, but the message was clear: we can reach you whenever we want. Civilian populations panicked. Food shipments stopped. Economies crashed. Citizens demanded their governments make peace with the humans. The pressure became unbearable. The collective was first to break. Their council sent a message to Haven Prime: "We withdraw from the Coalition. We wish to negotiate peace terms." The dynasty followed 3 weeks later. Their ancient pride couldn't accept defeat, but their practical nature understood reality. "We request ceasefire talks," their high speaker announced. Fleet Commander Park led a different mission. Human intelligence had discovered something disturbing. Several alien powers kept enslaved species in hidden systems. Populations conquered long ago and forced to work in mines and factories, forgotten by the galaxy. "This ends now," declared. She took her fleet to the mining world of 4, where the Imperium kept 12 million slaves from the species. They had been defeated in a war 300 years ago. Most people had forgotten they existed. Ships destroyed the orbital defenses and landed troops. The guards fled without fighting. The slaves emerged from underground mines, blinking in light many had never seen. They were thin, weak, and afraid. "You're free," told them through translators. "No one owns you anymore." They stared at the human soldiers in disbelief. "Why?" one old asked. "Why do you help us?" "Because we remember being cast out too," replied. "We remember being told we weren't good enough. We won't let others suffer that fate." Human forces liberated 7 more slave populations across the galaxy. Each time, the freed species pledged loyalty to humanity. They had no love for the old galactic powers who had either enslaved them or ignored their suffering. Public opinion shifted. Some alien species began to question their governments. "The humans freed the slaves," they said. "Maybe they're not the threat we were told they were. Maybe our leaders are the problem." On Prime, Empress met with her council. The blockade had lasted 6 months. Her people were hungry. Her economy was collapsing. Her military was broken. She had no good options left. "Send a message to the humans," she said quietly. "Tell them we're ready to talk peace." High Chancellor received the surrender request with satisfaction. "Inform the Empress we'll begin negotiations at Crossroads Station in 1 month. Tell her to bring her treaty documents. We'll dictate the terms." Across the galaxy, other powers watched and realized the same truth. Humanity had won. The question now wasn't whether to negotiate, but how much they would have to give up to make peace. In the void, human colonies celebrated. President Min addressed the people from Haven Prime. "We didn't want this war," she said. "We wanted recognition and respect. Now we have it, but we must be careful. Victory can make us arrogant. We must use our power wisely." General Wuhan stood beside her, satisfied. "We're not the Banished anymore," he said. "We're the power that the galaxy fears to cross." Young soldiers who had fought in the void looked at the stars of the galaxy with new eyes. Those bright points of light were no longer forbidden territory. They were open space, ready for humanity to claim. The old galactic order was broken. A new age was beginning, and humanity stood at its center, forged by exile into something stronger than anyone had imagined. Crossroads Station floated in neutral space, ancient and massive. It had been built thousands of years ago as a meeting place for all galactic species. Now it would host the most important negotiations in modern history. Human ships arrived first, establishing a defensive perimeter. They weren't taking chances. Chancellor Sora led the human delegation. She was 60 years old, born in the void, and had never seen Earth. Beside her walked Admiral Young, commander of the Hammer fleets. They represented humanity's 2 faces, diplomatic and military. Both were equally strong. Empress arrived with her advisors, looking tired and defeated. The collective sent their High Council members. The dynasty's representatives were ancient beings who moved slowly but thought deeply. Other species sent observers, curious to see how the mighty had fallen. The negotiations began in the Grand Chamber. Sora didn't waste time with pleasantries. 250 years ago you banished us. You called us dangerous and locked us away. You were wrong. We didn't die. We didn't weaken. We became stronger than all of you." Empress shifted uncomfortably. "We acted out of fear. Perhaps that was a mistake." "Perhaps," Admiral Young's voice was hard. "Your blockade trapped 15 billion people on one planet. Millions died from overcrowding and starvation in those early years. My grandmother was one of them. Don't minimize what you did." A representative spoke up. "What do you want from us? Total surrender." "No," Sora said. "We want what you us, recognition, respect, and justice. Here are our terms." She projected the documents for all to see. The terms were clear and non-negotiable. First, a formal apology from the Galactic Council and all member species who voted for banishment. Second, full recognition of humanity as a galactic species with all rights and privileges. Third, reparations paid in technology sharing, raw materials, and open trade agreements. Fourth, a permanent seat on the Galactic Council with veto power over military actions. Fifth, dismantling of all blockade networks around human space. And one more thing, Sora added, protection for all liberated species. The and others we freed, they get council representation too. No more hidden slavery, no more forgotten peoples. The alien delegates argued, but weakly. They had no leverage. Human fortress stations still surrounded there. Human ships could strike anywhere at any time. They had been outmaneuvered militarily and morally. After 3 weeks of negotiations, the treaties were signed. Empress' hand shook as she marked the document. "I hope you use your power more wisely than we did," she said to Sora. "We will," Sora replied, "because we remember what it's like to be powerless." Back in the void, High Commander Jin Woo received the news. The treaties were signed, but he remained cautious. "Keep the fortress stations operational," he ordered. "Maintain our fleets at full readiness. Peace is good, but preparedness is better." The void territories remained humanity's stronghold. Even as humans moved back into galactic space, opening new colonies and trade posts, the Void Empire stayed separate. It was humanity's insurance policy, a place the galaxy couldn't reach, couldn't touch, and couldn't threaten. 20 years after the treaties, humanity had spread to 2,000 systems. Half were in galactic space, living among other species and rebuilding old relationships. Half remained in the void, maintaining the military and industrial infrastructure that had won the war. The population reached 200 billion. Humans born in the void mixed with humans born under bright suns. A new culture emerged, confident, strong, and aware of their place in the universe. The Galactic Council changed dramatically. Ambassador represented humanity in the new council chambers. She was young, brilliant, and unafraid to challenge the old powers. "This council failed for centuries," she said in her first speech. "It protected the strong and ignored the weak. That ends now." Under human pressure, the council reformed. Democratic representation replaced rule by military power. Smaller species gained voting rights. Policies were reviewed for fairness. The old guard resisted, but they had no choice. Humanity had the military might to enforce change. The Imperium adapted surprisingly well. Their new emperor, a reformer named, worked with humanity to rebuild relationships. "We were arrogant," he admitted publicly. "We thought we knew what was best for the galaxy. The humans taught us humility." Some species remained bitter. The old military leaders refused to accept their defeat, but their people were tired of war and voted them out of power. New governments rose, more willing to work with humanity. The void technologies humanity developed became their greatest trade goods. Cold fusion reactors, ghost drives, and void navigation systems were worth fortunes. But humans shared carefully, making sure no single species gained too much advantage. Scientist Min, grandson of the original, established the first joint research station. Human and alien scientists worked together, learning from each other. "My grandfather worked alone in the dark," Min said. "I work in the light with friends from across the galaxy. This is progress." 30 years after the treaties, a new generation had grown up. Young people like Cadet Jun represented the future. He was born on Earth but trained in the void. He spoke 3 alien languages and had friends from 5 different species. He joined the military not to fight old enemies, but to explore new frontiers. "What's it like?" his classmates from other species asked him. "Growing up human, knowing your people were banished." Jun thought carefully. "It makes us remember. We know what it's like to be rejected. We know what it's like to survive when everyone expects you to die. It makes us stronger but also more careful. We don't want anyone else to suffer what we suffered." The void colonies became a destination for adventurers and settlers from all species. Aliens who felt trapped in their own rigid societies came to the void seeking freedom. Humans welcomed them carefully, screening for troublemakers, but offering opportunities to those who wanted to work hard. New Harmony, the colony that had refused evacuation 200 years ago, became a symbol. Governor One's descendants still led the settlement. It had grown from 5,000 people to 5 million. It was the most diverse void colony, with humans and 20 different alien species living together. "We proved you could survive out here," the current governor told visitors. "Now we're proving you can thrive." President Myra Young stood before the Galactic Assembly on the 250th anniversary of humanity's banishment. She was the great-granddaughter of engineer Myra Han, who had destroyed Station in defiance. That fighting spirit remained in the family. 2.5 centuries ago," Myra said, her voice carrying to billions watching across the galaxy, "you banished us. You thought you were protecting yourselves from a threat. Instead, you created one. You forced us to become strong because weakness meant death. You forced us to innovate because we had no one to depend on. You forced us to unite because division would have destroyed us. We don't thank you for that. The cost was too high, millions dead, families separated, dreams destroyed. But we acknowledge the result. We became something greater than we might have been. We learned that true strength comes not from being accepted by others, but from accepting ourselves. Today, we stand as equals in this galaxy, not because you granted us permission, but because we earned it. We fought for it. We built an empire in darkness that shines brighter than any star, and we did it our way, with our values, with our determination. We were told we were too aggressive, too emotional, too dangerous. Perhaps we are, but we're also too brave to quit, too stubborn to surrender, and too human to become something we're not just to please others. The galaxy is changing. The old order built on fear and power is dying. A new order built on respect and cooperation is rising. We will ensure that this new galaxy is fair, that it protects the weak, and that no species ever suffers what humanity suffered. We were banished to die. Instead, we learned to thrive. Now we will teach the galaxy what it truly means to be free. The assembly erupted in mixed reactions. Some cheered, others sat in silence, but none could deny the truth of her words. Later, Myra stood in an observation room looking out at the stars. Admiral Jin Park joined her. He was retired now, but still influential. "Do you think they understand?" she asked him. "Some do, some never will, but it doesn't matter anymore. We're not asking for understanding. We're demanding respect." "And if they refuse?" Jin Park smiled. "Then they'll learn the same lesson the old council learned. You don't cage humanity. You don't limit us. You don't tell us what we can or cannot be. We decide our own fate." Far away in the void, new colonies were being built. Human ships explored deeper into the darkness, finding new worlds and new opportunities. Children played in ice domes, learning to survive in the harshest environment imaginable. Soldiers trained for threats that might never come, but remained ready anyway. The void had changed humanity. It had made them harder, stronger, and more independent. But it had also taught them the value of perseverance, the importance of community, and the power of hope. They had been banished from the galaxy, but they had forged an empire no star system could defy. And in doing so, they had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their technology. It was their refusal to give up, no matter the odds.